Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. At the theater, a tale of assigned seats unfolds as an initially generous offer to swap seats turns into a lesson in pettiness. The second story. In a tale of apartment living, a series of unfounded noise complaints leads to a petty yet satisfying revenge against an elderly neighbor. The third story. Boss's refusal to help an employee in need leads to a sweet revenge when the employee returns the favor in a time of financial struggle for the company. Today's first story is assigned seats. I went to the theater this weekend to see a show. It was a professional show at a high-end venue. I bought 2 tickets for myself and my husband months ago, and I usually splurge on really good seats, so we were in the 4th row orchestra, dead center of the row. Last week I found out that my adult son was unexpectedly available that night, so I asked if he wanted to join us, if I could still get a ticket. Prices were double what I'd paid a few months ago and the house was almost full, but I managed to snag a very expensive single seat in the same row as us 4 seats away. He said he didn't mind sitting alone. And I said, well, we'll just see if people don't mind shuffling along by 2 seats. They can have our center seats and we'll sit with you. Night of the play comes. We arrive 20 minutes before curtain. The 4 people are already in their seats. I approach, explain the situation, and ask nicely if they would mind shuffling a bit so we can seat our whole party together. Reddit, they looked at us like we had asked them if we could F their sisters. Not a word, they all just shook their heads silently. I couldn't believe people wouldn't be generous, but whatever, they're within their rights and they don't have to move. So we all took our assigned seats, my hubs and I in the middle of the row, and my son on the other side of all the meanies. As we settled in, I realized that the meanies were in 2 different groups. Couple A, right next to us, was pointedly ignoring us, and Couple B, further from the center and next to my son, was looking over at us, maybe slowly realizing they had missed a chance at center seats, especially when a fairly tall guy sat in front of one of them. Since I'd already asked, no means no, and the offer was clearly still open, I didn't say anything, and they still didn't take the opportunity to swap with us. As the show started, I realized that the 4 seats on the other side of my son were still open. I knew they were ticketed from checking the seat map the week before, so I figured people would just come late. But no, at the end of the first act, those seats were still open. It's pretty typical at the theater that you wait till intermission, and then can swap seats after that if you want, as long as you're sure they're not spoken for. There's no real rules, but it's first come first serve, and obviously no one's entitled to a different seat, so you just have to try not to be a jerk about it. So as soon as the curtain went down for intermission, and we could get out of the row, my husband and I put our jackets down across the 2 seats next to my son to claim them. So we now had 3 seats together, with 2 empty seats next to us by the aisle. After coming back from the bathroom, I took my new seat. The aisle seats next to us had meanwhile been filled by 2 super nice 20-somethings who sheepishly asked if it was okay if they sat there. They had moved down from the El Cheapo balcony seats and were clearly not sure if it was okay. I told them it was. In the meantime, mean Couple B had now figured out that we'd moved. I can see them starting to eye the center seats we've abandoned, probably thinking about their obstructed view. So I quickly turned to the 20-somethings and asked if they wanted even better seats dead center. I pointed out our empty seats and said they were welcome to them. They immediately saw it as an upgrade, thanked us profusely and headed over there, having to move past both mean couples. Mean Couple B gave me a dirty look, but hey, they had their chance before the first act. My husband seemed really confused about what had just happened, but I told him I didn't want any of the meanies to get better seats than they had. I think he was shocked at my pettiness, but it was worth it. Edit to answer a few questions. Yes, I enjoyed the show. I can multitask, meaning watch a great show and silently judge people at the same time. In fact, those are 2 of my favorite activities. I don't know why we as humans like to be physically close to the people we love even if we're not talking to them. I think most of us like to sit with our whole party, or at least not leave one person on their own, but my kids know if they decide to join us at the last minute they'll probably be sitting in a single seat. They're used to it and it's not a big deal. In fact, I offered to buy him a pair of tickets so he could bring a friend or a date to sit with, but he declined and said he just wanted to see us. We live in a place where kindness and generosity are valued. Okay, it's Canada. I live in Canada. In fact, just last week my husband and I shuffled seats at different shows to accommodate a party in much the same way. That said, I definitely didn't feel entitled to the seats. We all went to our assigned seats and then I said, "Hi, I've got these 2 seats, and the 3rd person I'm with is on the other side of you 4. How would you feel about shuffling this way 2 seats so we could sit with him? Then they looked at me like I took an SH on the floor. So I said, okay, thanks for listening, enjoy the show. And then we all took our seats. Being able to gift my seats to an adorable, appreciative young couple who clearly couldn't afford to sit front and center warmed my cold, dead heart. As for the meanies, I felt that their punishment fit their crime. My understanding is that you initially suggested better seats to be close to your son. However, when no one responded, you decided to move to less comfortable seats and left the best ones for others, which was your right. Yes, you acted politely by asking and accepting the refusal without turning the situation into a drama. And I'm glad the couple on the balcony liked those center seats. You showed the mean couple B criminals that they really should have chosen the center seats when offered. You successfully used the situation and your wit to respond to the uncultured and unkind behavior of some people in the theater. Your attempt to be polite and match your actions with your words was commendable. Those who did not appreciate your politeness deserve all the inconvenience that resulted from their dishonesty. This is called the law of karma. Well done to you. The second story is, scared my neighbor so badly being petty she called the cops. Again. Years ago, when my wife and I first got married, we moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment together. We found out later this particular unit has been vacant quite a while. The woman on the other side of our only shared wall was an elderly woman. She never spoke to us but was never overtly rude to us. Very quickly after moving in, we received a notice someone has complained about excessive noise. Now, we were young, but we never liked to throw parties at our own house. We went out, so we had never even had people over at this point. So we were quite confused by this. We called the office and they told us not to worry too much about it. Must have been a misunderstanding. About a week later, get a knock on our door. It's the police. We open the door to see what's up. They tell us a neighbor has called and complained we were being too loud. We were literally sitting in our living room watching TV. We showed the officers as much and they apologized and left. This happened several more times over the coming months. One time we came home from a movie to the cops knocking. We showed them our ticket stubs and opened the door to a dark and silent apartment. At this point, the officers said, okay, we'll take care of this. I closed the door but stayed at the door and watched them walk towards my neighbor and knock on her door. I hear them telling her she's to stop calling them for nothing or there will be consequences. After seeing this, we now knew for sure who was calling. A few days later, we were parking and saw her pull in right after us. My wife decided to try and talk to her to finally and see if we could figure out the problem. My wife walked towards her car, smiling, saying hello. This woman locked herself in her car and started crying. We let her be, obviously. My wife went straight to the office to speak to the staff about this issue. I went inside and waited at the peephole. Now, this woman was very old and walked with a walker. I hear the outside door close. I wait a few seconds and she comes into view on my peephole. While she's walking by my door, I reach back and kick the door with all my might. She screams, lifting her walker into the air, and screams as she nearly sprints to her apartment. After a few minutes, I get out my vacuum and start running it as cover because I know it's coming. A few minutes later, sure enough, police are at my door. Lucky for me, it's the same cops as the last time. They knock a couple of times and I shut the vacuum off and answer the door. They apologize for the intrusion, but they have to come and ask if I had struck my door while she was walking by. I was aghast at the accusation. I say, guys, come on, I would never. What kind of a childish monster would do that to an old woman? I don't know if they believe me or not, but they accepted the explanation. After this final straw, she was not allowed to renew her lease a few months later, and was cited for improper use of 911, and we were granted an order of protection against her, and she has to move out. Was I an a-hole and super petty? Definitely. Do I regret it? Sometimes. Would I do it again? Abso-effing-lutely. It's understandable that you were very impatient living next to such an annoying neighbor. The first time the police came because of her calls, it was already funny. But when you decided to get back at her for all those visits by law enforcement, you just defined yourself as a master of revenge. This woman seems to be an unhappy boat rocker, and she wished the same thing would happen to you because she was giving it her all. This is obviously a confusion of her own desire. Just enjoy your victory. You've become a hero to the entire apartment complex and the local police department. And now you can breathe a sigh of relief knowing that she has to move. The third story is, boss didn't help me when I needed it, so I did the same when he asked me for help. So this happened in my old job. I worked as a travel advisor in a luxury travel agency in France. During this period, no business was coming in and the French government stepped in to cover our salaries while staying at home. This government aid covers 70% of our salary, and the remaining 30% has to be covered by our employer. This means that we're only allowed to work 30% of our original hours with our company, and that equates to less than 10 hours of work per week. Since there was no business coming in, and since the bulk of my income was commission from sale of travel packages which was not coming in, I had run into a small financial dilemma and needed a bit of funds to cover my rent for a month. So I reached out to my boss to ask for a salary advance, which is to be deducted from my paycheck at the end of the month. By the way, for context, it's an employee's legal right in France to have a salary advance if needed for as long as the amount of the advance is covered in full by your end of the month's paycheck. My boss told me that it's not possible, and messaged me the following text: "If you have personal financial problems, you should check with your banker." I was flabbergasted by his response, especially because I was his top seller, and I brought in 1.4 million euros in revenue year before the pandemic. Even though I knew he was a D, I never imagined he would refuse my access to this right of mine as an employee. I could have sent him a formal letter of demand by mail to force him to give me an advance, as provided by the labor laws, but I decided not to as I was able to borrow money from a friend. Weeks gone by after the incident and business hasn't improved. The company's funds are dwindling since no income was coming in. To help French companies, the government decided to give them an option to decrease the vacation leaves of their employees by somehow allowing them to impose vacation times, even when the employees are not working anyway on those days. If I could remember correctly, it was 3 days that they can fully impose without objection from the employee, and 4 days extra with the consent of the employee. All my colleagues agreed to give their vacation time except for me and another disgruntled coworker. Since we still haven't given our consent, and the end of this government is nearing, he messaged me and the other employees stating that we're the only people who haven't agreed. He's saying that we should help the company as it's going through some financial problems, and that it would be really nice of us to give him our consent. Upon receipt of the message, I promptly responded with the following text: "I'm really sorry to hear that the company is going through some financial problems, but let me remind you of the advice you gave me when I asked for your help a couple weeks back. If you have financial problems, I suggest you talk to your banker, and that means I'm not going to give you my vacation leave." I had the guts to be upfront because I know that he can never fire me due to my performance and very strong French labor laws, and I was also planning to leave soon anyway. I wished I was in front of him when I told him that. Knowing him, I'm pretty sure he went all red and mad when he read that message, and his forehead veins should be visibly throbbing like whenever he's mad at someone. He was too shook that the only response he gave me was okay. I was extremely satisfied with my comeback that I had a smile on my face the entire week. Revenge can be really satisfying. Your boss seems to have forgotten his own advice when you needed help, and you've done a great job of reminding him of that. Your response, this epic, "If you have financial problems, I advise you to go to a banker," was just incredible. I want to see the look on his face when you leave. That's the kind of revenge that extends your life by 10 years. Awesome. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a good day.